Hi, this is Mark, and I'm going to talk about a rather sensitive topic. I'm going to talk about my experience with masturbation in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in my younger years, and what the attitudes, what the position of the church was and is, and how I dealt with it, I guess. So I grew up, and in another video, I mentioned how I didn't even know what that word meant. And from a fairly early age, I was masturbating and didn't know that it was wrong. And because I didn't, this is before the internet, because I grew up in the 1960s as a kid, and 1970s in high school. And we didn't have internet, and I had parents that didn't tell me about the birds and the bees, that is sexual education. So I didn't know how babies were made. I didn't know anything. And so I had no idea what was involved in how it was done. So all I knew was that it felt good when I rubbed that area. And having no idea that in the Mormon church, that is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that was considered a sin. It was considered a sexual sin. I didn't discover it until I actually, and I know this sounds crazy because I was such a sheltered life, until I was in a bishop's interview for my mission. I was like, I was 18 years old, and the bishop asked me, do you masturbate? And I didn't know what the word meant, so I said no. And then I went home and thought, the thing is, how can you be doing something if you don't know what the word means, you must not be doing it. That's the way I rationalized it. I didn't ask him what the word meant. Then when I looked it up, I thought, oh my gosh, I did, and I just felt this horrible, and because lying to the bishop, that's like lying to a judge. I mean, that's like, well, I call it a judge in Israel, and so that's like going to court and lying on a deposition or lying while you're under oath. That's a serious thing. So I went back to the bishop and told him I didn't know what it meant, and that yes, I had, and I was actually put on probation for several months, held back from going on my mission for a few months because I had to prove that I wasn't going to masturbate for, I think it was a period of 6 months. I can't remember. It might have been 4. It's been too long. We're talking 1975 here. But it was several months. And my understanding is that there's different leaders of the church seem to approach it differently. However, that was a direct question that I was asked in this bishop's interview. I've been told that they're not asking that anymore. I don't know if it's don't ask, don't tell, I'm not sure. However, I do know that the church still considers masturbation as a sexual sin. So after my mission, actually during my mission, I did it twice and told my mission president I thought I was going to get sent home from a mission, and I was so distraught over it. But he said it's okay, just don't do it again, and I continued my mission. They would always say that the reason why masturbation was so serious, and because it was a sexual sin, and sexual sin was second only to murder. But there were degrees of sexual sin. That was a lesser one. However, the problem with it was that you couldn't do restitution. And it was a sin, it was what they call a sin against nature. In other words, it was unnatural. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not true. It is natural. It's natural. If you've ever owned a dog, you'll see the dog's doing it. And if you've ever gone to the zoo, you'll see all the primates are doing it. And I guess all of the mammals do it, and but anyway, so it's very natural. But they called it a sin against nature. Anyway, I'm on my mission, and it's 1976, and at that point I had stopped. I was good and everything, and hadn't done it. I was trying to do everything I could do to keep the commandments and preach the gospel and all this stuff. And they had a general conference, and they have one of the meetings they have is called the General Priesthood meeting, and this was only for the men who held the priesthood, which is pretty much everybody who's in the church, who's a male, and the boys. This would be boys 12 and up, the youth 12 and up. And so they would go to this meeting. And one of the speakers was Boyd K. Packer. And he gave a talk, and I remember he started this talk. He said, this is going to be a very sensitive topic, and I'm going to talk about something. And then he talked about how you have these different urges, and in you have this little factory, and if you touch yourself, basically play with yourself, then it speeds up the little factory and makes it go faster, which, by the way, is not scientific, because masturbation does not make you produce more sperm. And then he went on in the speech and said, people would they do that, and then it can lead to homosexuality, because then they start masturbating with other boys, and they start playing with each other, and then pretty soon they become homosexuals. And then he had in part of the talk, he talked about a missionary who had slugged his companion, who apparently had made a homosexual pass at him, and kind of made a joke of well, I would punch him too. And I remember the audience laughed, and since that time, a lot of people thought that was really gay bashing that he was doing, not being very sensitive. Anyway, I remember afterwards my companion, because I had told my companion about that, when I went to the mission president, and he had said, oh yeah, he had done it too, but he had stopped. He said, oh, aren't you glad we stopped after seeing that? And I said, yeah. Well, that particular talk, as it turns out, sent young boys reeling into guilt. And that was turned into a pamphlet that the church produced, and they kept doing that. That pamphlet, I forgot what it was called. I think it was called For Young Men Only or something like that. Anyway, that pamphlet stayed in the church for like 40 years, and which was his talk about how masturbation was so bad and so evil, and if you're doing it, go to your father, go to your bishop, you've got to repent of it, all of this stuff. And so this confused a lot of young boys, and the suicide rate of boys in the church after that talk went sky high up. I believe, and a lot of people believe, there is a direct correlation between that talk and the suicide rate of the young men of the Mormon church going up. They felt so guilty that they thought all hope was lost, and then they would try to stop, and they couldn't stop. This was my experience later on. I was so focused on that one thing. I was doing my tithing, I was doing the word of wisdom, I was following everything I was supposed to do. I just had that one hang up, and I would like what I call slip 3 to 4 times a year. Okay, so 3 to 4 times a year I was masturbating, and I was convinced that I was a sex addict. Okay, that's how ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous it was. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. So, excuse me, any of you who are members of the church, don't feel so guilty about it, please. It's not that big a deal. So if the church still considers it to be a sin, and I understand that, so I've talked to other missionaries, and I've heard stories from current missionaries from the last year or two, and some of the mission presidents are like, yeah, if you do it once a week, that's okay. And then there's others that might send you home from your mission. So it's like, who knows what it is. However, the church's stance is they believe it's a sin. I am going to tell you, it is not unnatural. They polled people, and it was like almost everybody said they had done it before, and they say the ones who said they hadn't were probably lying. And just to define it, it's masturbation is anything rubbing your genitals in such a way as to cause arousal. And it considered a sin in the Mormon church, it's considered a sin in the Catholic church, it's considered a sin in many, many churches, a lot of the evangelicals. So if you're doing it, how do you come to terms with it? If you're doing it and you're a member of the religion, well, I would say do some research. I researched the science of it. The science of it says that it's not only natural, it's actually healthy. It reduces the chance of prostate cancer. It's good for making you not feel depressed. It gives you an endorphin high. There are multiple benefits to masturbation. It helps you sleep better. And here was the other thing that I found, was one of the things that they would tell me when I'd go to the bishop and confess of it. You go, well, the reason why you shouldn't masturbate is because the Spirit of God can't be with you, and so it makes it so you can't make clear decisions. Well, I always thought that was weird because, and I bought into it because I was believed the church. However, my experience was the opposite. It seemed like right after I had masturbated, and those few times I did, it seemed like my mind got so clear and so focused on things. And I could problem solve better. It was like there was a clarity that happened. And since that time, when I've accepted that it's fine, and I've left the Mormon church, by the way, and I don't believe it's a sin. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, unless you're doing it so much habitually that it's causing problems with your family and relationships. Then it is a problem. You might have obsessive compulsive disorder at that point. But otherwise, I don't see anything wrong with it. So, getting back to the church, the science does not support the church view. So if you're a member of the church or another church that thinks it's a sin, you've got to make a decision, because people who belong to a church, if people who believe it's a sin, are going to feel guilt after doing it. Every time they do it, they will feel guilt, and they'll feel bad, it'll make them feel depressed. Learn about it. If that's what you're going to believe, that's what you're going to believe, and I guess you won't be able to do it. I'm just telling you the science, and you've got to decide. But I would suggest you check the science behind it. Sometimes science and religion don't quite go together, and this is frankly one of those cases. And whatever you do, even if you decide that you're going to like you're a member of the church and you want to stay in that church and you want to keep those commandments, masturbating is still not that big a deal. It's a misdemeanor. Okay, it's not a big deal to them. I think it's healthy. I think the church should drop that completely and accept it. By the way, I should tell you something else about it. Okay, leading to homosexuality. That masturbation, in my experience, does not lead to homosexuality. In that same talk that Boyd K. Packer gave, he actually alluded that people chose homosexuality, and that just is not true. You don't choose it. I did not have any clue that I was homosexual on my mission, or for years after my mission. I didn't get it. Now, so I was looking at other guys, but since my belief was that you choose homosexuality, and I hadn't chose it, so it couldn't be homosexual. Well, so yeah, I had masturbated, and I got hung up with masturbating, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I felt I was so fixated on not masturbating that I wanted it even worse, right? But I never went like masturbating myself, and then I'm masturbating with other guys. No, that didn't happen. No, not at all. I was attracted to other guys. I was looking at other guys. I didn't know why. It wasn't until a therapist told me, he said, "Well, you're looking at other guys, you're homosexual." And it's like, oh. Another video I talked about that. I almost committed suicide over it. So my piece of advice is get educated. It's okay to search things out. It's okay to get educated on things, okay? Don't blindly believe. Blind faith is just not healthy. It's okay to investigate. Go ahead, investigate. See what legitimate science says, not pop science. And that's my advice on that. So, once I got to where I realized that, okay, I accept it, I see nothing wrong with it, I don't see it as a sin, I don't see it as unnatural, it's completely natural. Once I got to that point of accepting who I was and accepting that I could masturbate, I wasn't fixating on it anymore. I could say, well, I can do it anytime I want. When you can do it anytime you want, no, I won't do it today because I got some things to do. Oh, I won't do it tomorrow, I have some other things to do. So then you put it off because I can do it anytime I want. So it just took all of the pressure off. Once I accepted, yeah, I can do it if I want. At least that's how it worked for me. I hope this helps someone. I'm doing this video because I fixated on it so bad that it literally ruined 50 years of my life. Just destroyed it. I was feeling so guilty about this, needlessly. Suffering. Please do the research. Please don't go through what I went through. I'm trying to pay it forward here. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just let you know my experience so you don't have to suffer if you're in that kind of situation. With the internet and everything, probably most guys already have searched it out because it's there to do. But I just want to get my piece in there to know, and also let you know the way it used to be. It sucked, okay? It was hard to get information. So anyway, be good and have a good day.